What's up guys, welcome to Blake's Garage. So today we are going to upgrade the braking system on the 2017 Audi S3. Now, why am I doing this? Well, I have a track day coming up again this Friday at Thunderhill East. So my wife and I are both going to be racing the car. When I was out at Laguna Seca, I was on stock brakes. Yes, I knew that that's not the best idea. After about 2 laps, the pedal was getting real long, starting to get quite a bit of brake fade. And when I came into to the end of the session, my brakes were practically like on fire. I mean, they were smoking, and yeah, they'd seen better days. They completely blew, completely toast, and I got about that much pad left. We are gonna upgrade to some racing brake pads. I got these from 034 Motorsports. We're going with the Colbalt pads, the XR1s for the front and the XR2s for the rear. They say that this is a really good balance for the track. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get like nice high-end rotors. I was wanting to get some good ones, but they just were not going to come in time. So I went with the O'Reilly Special. These kind of have that warranty on them. Basically, if you don't grind them to the pad, you can basically get a new set of rotors. I know a lot of people do this when they're out on the track. Depending, you know, if you really toast brakes, this is a good way to just keep getting new rotors after you kind of fry them and put some grooves in them, as long as you don't completely toast them to the pad. So, you know, that's kind of my idea there. And also, in an upcoming video, I will also be upgrading the brake fluid on the car. This stuff right here, this Castrol React, is the best brake fluid that you can buy right now for racing. Pretty much, this stuff has a ridiculously high wet boiling point of 518 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, I mean, that's the wet boiling point. That's pretty crazy. Most other fluids are like nowhere even close to that. So this stuff is, however, 80 bucks a liter. Not cheap, but you want your brakes to work. And that was what I was finding when I was out on track, is that I did not feel comfortable diving into the corners because I didn't know if my car was going to stop. So with the Audi, for the rear brake pads, it is really weird. So we're gonna have to make a little trip, a little adventure to my friend Jet's house, and we gotta use a special tool. So let's go. All right, and we're here. So I'm gonna go get the car ready to get the brakes put on. All right guys, so this is the big mystery right here. These are the rear calipers and rear rotors right here. On the back side, you have this fun little electronic e-brake, and that is the issue with compressing the rear pads. That is why I had to venture out and meet up with Jet. All right guys, so this is Jet right here. He is hooking up the VAG Com right now. We're gonna see if we can't put the calipers into the service position for the rear.
We're under 03 address ABS brakes, basic settings. We will run the start lining change mode and hit go, and you're good.
Boom. All right guys, so I was actually able to get the rotor off without removing the original bracket. This little piece right here retains the caliper right here, and you're just able to pull that off very easily, just like a normal brake job, and grab your pads out. Now what's kind of weird is my outer side, the outside facing the outside towards the car, that one is worn down a whole hell of a lot more than the inside pad. I don't know why, kind of weird, but yeah, cool. So when we put these pins back on, we're gonna make sure to lubricate these, that way they can slide well, and we can hopefully get as even of pad wear as possible. There's the new brake pads right there. So for this little clip goes in here. You kind of slide it in, and then you'll make sure that it goes to the back side of this. Kind of a two-handed procedure. Okay guys, so this is pretty much all installed. We got the dust cover on the back side. All you have to do once you use the VAG Com is you just compress it back in. You don't even have to screw it in like a normal like a normal newer style rear piston, because it does that all electronically through the motor in the back there. So interesting guys, on my driver's side rear has a lot more pad on this side from the stock pads. These ones actually look fairly decent, whereas the passenger side did not look as good. So again, just have the caliper off. I'm gonna go ahead and compress the piston back in there, and then all I gotta do is slap the pads back on, reinstall the pins, and we're good to go. It's a fairly simple task. You just need the proper or VAG Com tool. I think it's recording. Red lights on?
Yep.
So what's kind of cool is that with this bracket, I'm actually able to take the rotor off without taking off the bracket, which is something that never happens. So awesome. We're reconnecting right now, right? Mm-hmm. And just verifying everything's cool. Overall, the rear brake pad installation on the rear is pretty simple. It's just a little bit of a different procedure than you would think. So once you finish the pad installation, you go to
end lining change mode.
Alright. Alright, so if you guys heard that, basically what it was doing is kind of calibrating the e-brake. This is the reason on this car you don't want to do this. Well, you really can't do this without that computer. If you do, you're going to damage your rear calipers, and you don't want to do that. That's going to cost you a bunch of money. So I need to get one of these soon, sometime. But the only issue is that it does use a PC. It doesn't use Mac OS. So that is kind of an issue if you guys run Mac OS. But if not, not a bad little tool. It's what, like $200-300?
You're really just paying for the cable. The software's free.
Okay, sick. Well, awesome.
It was successful, so we're good.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Jet, for helping out.
In time, man.
Like you said, this is like the first time you've kind of like helped out on a car, but not had to really get your hands dirty.
Yeah, I know. It's look, my hands are clean. I didn't even put gloves on or anything.
Yeah,
this is great.
You just got to be the computer guy today, which is pretty cool. So
just push buttons.
Yeah, push buttons. Get a quick shot of this. Alright guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove the brake caliper. I'm gonna be using a 13mm socket on the end right here, and I have to use a 17mm wrench right here to make sure that it doesn't spin. So we'll remove the caliper, that way we can remove the brakes. Then we have to remove the caliper bracket. I think those are 22 or 23mm on the back. And once we do that, we can pop off the rotor. The rotor also has a T25 Torx that you have to remove. That way the rotor will pop off. Add the new rotor over here, and then we'll slap on the new pads. Also, on the passenger side, this is your brake indicator when it tells you that your brake pads are worn out. So that is right there. That will also need to be disconnected. Just using a 17 and a 13mm to hold this into place. Then I'm gonna crack the bolt loose. Those are gonna be on there fairly tight, so just keep that in mind. 13mm and 17mm for the slide pins, that way it does not spin. Take that bolt off, take the other bolt off. Now we can actually just pull the caliper off. That's gonna slide away. I'm just gonna set that right up here, kinda out of the way. Go ahead and remove my brake pads. The factory brake pads, as you can see, they are cracked in the middle. I cracked them right down here. This car has about 15,000 miles on it now, and one track day, a few autocross days. You can tell they're pretty turfed out, cracking, and you can see all this pad material just left on the rotor. So that track day did a number on these pads. Like I was saying, you know, I was not feeling confident with the brakes on this car at the track. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of hang my caliper from a zip tie, if you will, as I don't want it to fall down or be supported by the brake line. So I just kind of zip tie. Now coming up soon, I haven't gotten all of my race brake fluid. I only got 1 liter. I'm actually waiting on another liter. There's been these fires in California. It's been delaying the shipment. So I should get that tomorrow, but we're gonna be bleeding the full system. Right now, I'm just gonna compress the caliper. You know, I'm gonna replace the rotor and take off this bracket and get the new pads on. So I removed both the 22mm bolts from the rear, and now I can take off the caliper bracket. This is a caliper bracket that holds the caliper, so I'll make sure to kind of clean this up and get this off. Now we're just gonna take the rotor off the car using, I think this is a T30. Yeah, T30 Torx right here on the rotor. Just break that little screw loose. That just retains the rotor onto the hub. That way it doesn't fall off on your feet or whatever the heck. So boom, rotor comes off, super simple. Okay, so now I can just go ahead and reinstall the rotor. I put on a clean set of gloves. The rotors, you know, they are hub centric. This should line up, and then you should be able to put in your little screw to retain your hub. Make sure that all your holes are lined up. For whatever reason, Audi, they kind of have these sort of set up for either two bolt patterns. It's either two bolt patterns or it's just to lighten up the rotor a bit. I'm actually not totally sure. To me, it looks like for two bolt patterns. So I like to get that nice and snug. Now I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall those 22mm bolts and re-put on this caliper bracket. Okay, so the 22mm bolts on the back are torqued down to spec. Now what I can do is go ahead and install the new brake pads. These are the Colbalt XR1s. They are a 19.5mm pad, or at least that's what it says on it. These are a straight up race pad, so they are a bit noisy, but for track days, these are legit. Got these from 034 Motorsports. They said these are the pads you want to run, so awesome. So I went ahead, opened up the hood, and popped off the cover to the brake fluid right there. And you can see the carbon fiber intake that I never really show you guys because never really completed this video. Facelift model, they never finished the facelift model. This is actually like a part that I was putting on and doing an install video for, but yeah, it only works for the previous ones, so never really show that, but boom, sneak peek, carbon fiber, full carbon fiber intake for the Audi S3. So I'm gonna go ahead and compress the caliper. With the Audi logo here, you kind of have to use the tool a little bit out so you don't scratch it up and so you don't have to ruin this piece. I put the pad in, I'm just gonna compress that real quick. That's gonna compress the hydraulic cylinder in the brake, putting the fluid back into the brake fluid reservoir, and then I'll be able to slap it on top of the new pads. Okay, so now you can see the hydraulic cylinder is fully compressed, and now I can reinstall the caliper. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut that zip tie real quick. Gotta make sure I don't cut anything else in the process. And we're just gonna slip this on here. Should have enough clearance, and it does. Looks like it's gonna fit well. And we can go ahead and put those bolts in here. I went ahead and added a little bit of blue Loctite to the back of these bolts. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and thread those in and torque them down. All right, so the brakes are installed back onto the car. Now you can see the S actually turned from silver to a little bit of gold last time. I'm not gonna be surprised if this next track day, this thing completely turns gold, or these brake rotors actually possibly change colors. We'll kind of see. Yeah, so that pretty much does it. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the wheel on, torque it down, and go bed in the brakes. So I gotta bleed the fluid on this car too, so I'm probably gonna make a separate video on that. So stay tuned, talk to you soon, later, wrench on.